Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm a nutritionist. I'm the founder of Qua Nutrition clinics. We have about 60 dietitians on our team here in India. I'm just replying to a question saying that nutrigenomics and genetics and diet intervention and combining genetics, really there's no science out there. So I wanted to give you a viewpoint of how I have digested it for our business here in India and figured out what is the collaboration we have done with scientific research papers in terms of buying them, acquiring them and reading it through, collaborating with genetic researchers, collaborating with companies that actually sell these gene tests. So and they are PhDs in genetics and nutrigenomics, and they give us information. And then how, when we are practicing as nutritionists with thousands of people, how do we integrate everything together? So I started off this whole thing about 2008 when I started working with athletes, and ACT3N was the first testing. But I just prepared a quick presentation because these internet forums where you have to type up answers and answer them, they go back and forth, I believe you, I don't believe you, and stuff like that. Sometimes many of us don't have time to do these things because we're too busy with counselings back to back through the entire day. So I thought I'll just put a viewpoint to answer certain questions, whether these activities are fraudulent, and so-called people out there who have called themselves evidence-based nutritionists or evidence-based doctors or evidence-based trainers need to look at the crux of the matter and how you digest the end result for your patient, because I believe in a concept called as bio-individuality, and no one equation gives you an end result. It's a sum of the whole. We have 23,000 genes if you want to talk about genes. So one genetic study on one diet gene related to high carbohydrate or high fat, if it doesn't prove conclusively it's right, because that segment of population and my client walking in do not match. But it's how you take the entire basket. So I'm just going to quickly walk you through what I've been looking at. So the test that we do over here, okay, very simple, is there's a fitness gene test that comes from this lab, okay, and we have things like aerobic capacity, okay, so endurance, aerobic capacity, heart capacity, lung capacity. Now I'll give you a simple one. Let's take lung capacity. In lung capacity, they take all of these genes over here. Now what happens is, when a client has lung capacity in lower function, this is an algorithm developed by the lab saying that may not have the best. As a trainer, as a coach, as a nutritionist, you may then go further with what we call as clinical assessments, which could be the beep test or the VO2 max test. I, as a nutritionist, would ask for the hemoglobin levels. I will also look at your iron saturation, total iron binding capacity, ferritin levels. So basically see that your lungs are at a good level. Now, when I know this, what we do is we figure out how we can bring in nutrition. So for me, the genetic lab is not telling me what to do with a lowered lung capacity, but I'm bringing in omega-3 and lycopene, because research papers on parallel functions have shown that lycopene and omega-3 improve lung capacity. So now I bring that together for an athletic thing. But more than this, I like some of the genes, like for example, let's talk about tendon strength and ligament strength. I've had athletes with chronic injuries, and that's from 2 decades past. Now we have these children who are between the ages of 10 and 15, and they are working out 5 to 8 hours a day purely into sports performance to become an Olympic level athlete. Now what if I analyzed all of these genes and the algorithm returned back to me says that the tendon strength is strong but the ligament strength is 50%, or it's lowered, or it's higher? The common sense approach over here would be to enhance the diet with more amount of gelatin and more amount of collagen. Now you would know the foods that are found in the planet, and that's how you would bring it in. So this is something on the the sports gene. There's exercise, there's likelihood of fatigue. You all know lactic acid. They analyze these 2 genes. Now go into those papers, Google up the papers that are there from TNF and MCT. Yes, you'll say that there's no link. But when we combine this with clinical testing, lactate threshold testing at, let's say, the pool side, and we see that LT thresholds are too low or too high, then how do you bring nutritional intervention? So the lab is actually saying that, ascorbic acid, HMB, but me as a sports nutritionist, I've been figuring out over the years how you can do lactic acid buffering with the plethora of knowledge available there, which is your magnesium, your bicarbonate buffer, which is L-carnitine, so many things. Now, I try one, doesn't work for the athlete, move on for the next 2-3 months, figure it out. There's always a course adjustment that you're doing in terms of nutritional coaching. Again, no one size fits all, it varies from person to person. The next one, which is the genetic nutrition test, and this is where the diet part is saying that stuff on diet is fraudulent and stuff like that. Let me just show you my train of thought, okay? Sorry. So let me just take a simple one, which is, let's take vitamin, let's stop over here, let's say B9. Now B9 is folic acid controlled by what is known as the methyl tetrahydrofluorate reductase enzyme, MTHFR gene, one of the most widely researched genes today. So for me, this is diet. I want to know how vitamin B9 works. So let me just show you where it is. Let me just find it, because I made this presentation to answer most of the queries out there. Yeah, it's over here. Okay, so if I can show you that you normally take an ordinary folic acid and it's broken down to 5 methyl tetrahydrofluorate. Now basically what happens is, let me just show this to you, and I can make this presentation available to anyone who wants it also. If you look over here, when people come with heart attacks, okay, or higher predisposition for heart disease. Now let me show you how we actually get into it. I go to the health gene. Okay, so this is another genetic test in terms of health markers. Okay, and we look at heart disease. Okay, and in heart disease they're checking all of these markers. Okay, now in one of those markers is MTHFR. Okay, we have various other markers which the lab will give it to us. Okay, now what I do is, when I look at that marker, I ask for a blood test, and the blood test will come back, let's say, for homocysteine. Now if your homocysteine levels are very high, an alarm bell should go off in my head as a nutritionist saying, hey, hang on, I'm a clinical biochemist, homocysteine is really high, I've done the gene test, predisposition to heart disease is there, I've done the nutrition gene test specifically for this guy, the vitamin B9, and if it's coming green, fine, great, but what if it comes red? That means the MTHFR gene is not working well. If it doesn't work well, that's why homocysteine is going up. So all I have to do is I have to start bringing in the following guys. I have to bring in methyl folate as a supplement, because your folic acid is not broken down to methyl folate, and I need to focus on vitamin B12. So what I would do is I would also check vitamin B12. So if I look over here, vitamin B12 is moderate. Now I correlate this from a genetic test. So this is done once, and I correlate this to the blood tests that we get. So let me just show you what we do at Qua Nutrition. Okay, if I can just show you. So this is what all we capture: height, weight, body fat percentages, resting metabolism, total skeletal fat, total skeletal muscle, subcutaneous fat. And if you see this, I have this data of a person, a client of mine, that's over about, I think, about 5 years. And this is how we collect data, and this is how we keep working on blood chemistry. So let me just show you what all we capture. Okay, so yeah, assessment is all of these things that we capture: symptoms, we take it down, dietary recall, we look at blood parameters. So we look at blood testing at least every 6 months. Okay, and when we're planning our diet chart, we go into the integrities of every part. But I just want to show you is, when I'm looking at a blood parameter, when I'm planning a diet chart, I'm looking at all of these parameters. I'm looking at my genetic profile, I'm looking, and I don't want to show you this stuff because this is stuff we have spent years developing. And for people out there to say prove what you're doing, well, 2 Olympic medals, Guinness World Record of non-stop aerobics, 7,000 clients, of which I think about 800 have been genetically tested, and the genetic clients have had behavioral modification. They have worked forward. So I'm not going on the low carb, high fat kind of debate here. I'm going into specific individual markers related to disease with relationship to diet, as well as biochemistry markers in the genetic test. So for example, let's say this person has LDL cholesterol is high. Okay, and we have had it chronically high. We have triglycerides very high. How do I bring about dietary intervention? So just to give you a sneak preview into what we do, we actually have an Excel sheet, and let's say the person's a veg source, okay? And we have every nutrient possibly highlighted over here with the top nutrients. Let's say, for example, where's my amino acids in the, I just want to show you this. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so B9. So I know now that moth bean is one of the highest and black-eyed beans is there. So when I get my genetic test, if it is significantly raised, which means it is in the red bar, then let's say in this case it was not there. So let's assume it's there. My software will begin to tell me how many times that food has been required as an occurrence. So in this person's case, mushroom came up very high. This is not for F9. I don't want to show you how I'm linking it because this is proprietary stuff, and we are not cheating people. We are not conning people. We are giving them correct scientific advice based on blood test, based on assessment, based on counseling coordination, based on the genetic behavior. And there's one thing that I want to show further over here. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we learned. Okay, I learned that L-methylfolate, if it's low and I just give L-methylfolate, even simple things like aging, when we've added L-methylfolate in my dad, his memory improved. So there's a lot of stuff that you can learn, and it's all available on the internet. And I spoke about only one gene for vitamin B9. So I just want to show you that what the lab is giving me is they're giving this whole basket. Okay, some of the genes I'm like, how will I work with that? That doesn't have any indication for me. So let me just take, for example, the fat storage genes. Okay. Or let me actually give you a flow sheet of what all we are looking at. Okay, we're looking at carbohydrates, fats, proteins, minerals, glucose, lactose, and gluten. And somebody said that gluten it's not proved. I personally have done my gluten DNA test. I ate gluten all my life, and I had adult acne, IBS problem, and everything. When I did the DNA test, I stopped gluten. Okay. By the way, the blood test was not showing up. Okay, the blood tests were not showing up my gluten sensitivity, but I was eating gluten. But my DNA said I have a gluten sensitivity, so I decided to eliminate it. 3 months later, when I wanted to bring back gluten, I had severe, huge issues with my body, including blood tests that went to haywire, ESR, C-reactive protein going up. And this we are seeing with people in our clinic. So when we are recommending it, we're looking at, hey, you've got gluten intolerance, but I'm eating gluten, what should I do? Well, continue eating if you're okay with it. But if there are life-threatening diseases there, high inflammation, obesity, ESR, C-reactive protein, these markers are through the roof, then logic says that maybe I should pay attention to this. But what everyone out there is saying, oh, but there is no proof that there is gluten related to the disease and it is not conclusively proved. My point of view is this. I want to show you the lactose gene. Okay, the lactose gene, there was a study done. They are assuming that about 66% of South Indians, I'm from India, 1.6 billion people, you can't get a better diversity than our country to get mind fucked. Sorry, excuse my language. Because people within the same circle of a state can have so much of diversity. You do not know whether what one study was done in one location works, another study done in another location works. What you have to do is have the belief that when you're testing, you're looking at all these prongs and taking out the best that you can from it. So it's saying about 80% of the North Indian and 66% of the South Indian population is lactose intolerant. Now guess what? When I'm trying to tell a mother that I can't give lactose to a kid because the kid's saying I've got gas, I've got flatulence, and I've got loose motions and I feel discomfort, and the whole world, including my coach and everybody else, says drink milk or have a lot of dairy product, and you can see that when the kid gets up early morning, there's a lot of mucus production because you ask these questions in your dietary recall. Hang on, nobody's listening to you. So then we do the genetic test for the lactose, and there are two variants called MCM6. Okay, and basically if it's normal, you can produce lactase normally, and if it's normal, it's not there. So the idea is, what is the study? The study is 153 healthy volunteers. Okay, I mean 1.6 billion population. You are asking me to trust a scientific study on 153 people. So let's do one thing. Let's wait for the next 20 years till we scan the whole population, and then we'll rely on this methodology of genetic testing. Or you take your common sense learning of 10-20 years, you take your assessment recalls, you take your physical parameters, you take your blood chemistry, and you add this component of genetic testing and bring this whole thing holistic together. For example, people ask, Ryan, should I drink coffee, should I not drink coffee? The CYP1A2 gene, clearly studied, Google it up. Okay, you have a slow metabolizer and you have a fast metabolizer. How do you do that? Okay, forget coffee. Let's go more nutritionally to women. Okay, 48% of women in India have hemoglobin lesser than 12. Okay, now if I analyze these two genes and I know the variants, and both variants are likely to have lower iron level in the blood, and my iron saturation, total iron binding capacity, ferritin in the blood test are all there. You may say to me, Ryan Fernando, why are you doing genetic testing when a conclusive blood test can do that? Because doctors have been doing this all these years. They've been giving pills of iron supplementation and they're not getting results. Hang on. We do the gluten DNA test. We have had the gluten positive. We pull people off gluten, and now you're asking, what's gluten got to do with iron? The microvilli damage. Google this up again. The zonulins and the attack to the microvilli, micronutrient absorption decreases. So on one hand, I'm getting behavioral compliance because I've told them on that. I can watch it in the blood test. I know the gene in iron is also low. So when you have triple whammy like this, genetic testing allows you to have a crystal ball gazing into what could be the future of your therapy given to a client. So that's what's there. You know, I have B12. About 70% of the clients walking into my clinic who are vegetarian, and you know this, B12 is only found in non-veg. How do I convince them to take a supplement? Okay, so when the gene in B12, if the variant is normal and the blood test is low, variant normal, blood test low, then I have to look at intrinsic factor, I have to look at acidity, I have to look at probiotics and gut problem. If it's normal, I don't need to do anything. And I just tell them, you know, come back every year, keep eating correctly and stuff like that. So there's a lot that you can do, okay? And then there's MUFA, okay? Monounsaturated fat. So everybody in Europe and in America is tom-tomming that olive oil is the greatest oil. But there's not enough significant research in India because olives are not grown in this part of the world and they're MUFA. And guess what? Most of the Indians that we're testing have a better predisposition to saturated fat. So now my clients are adding olive oil to their diet, and if it's crossing more than 30% of the total energy expenditure, so nobody's calorie balancing it, so they're coming to me and saying, how do I do this? This is where we are then saying, okay, this is how we would split the oils, and this is how we would make a behavior of people. You know, how do you prescribe a better choice of an oil? And people will come back to me and say, yeah, you need to do cyclic, seasonal, and all of that stuff. Fine, we'll incorporate that into it also. At the end of the day, the guy sitting in front of the client who's prescribing, and I use the word prescribing the diet, should have all the tools necessary to help them check it out. Okay, I'm sorry this video is going really long, but I get really pissed off and people keep poking me and asking me, and they don't. I am a nutrigenomics counselor and I do teach this course in India to a lot of people, and a lot of people in India do not want to spend money to learn but attack you on the internet saying what you're doing is rubbish. I'll just show you a quick insight. I don't know if somebody's going to shoot me for this, but when you take PUFA, okay, have a look at this. If they are APOA1 carriers in women, okay, if they are with the AA allele, then they're going to have a higher HDL. If they're with a GG, they're going to have a lower HDL. Now, when I get this data and I can significantly look at it on different numbers of the genes and whether I have with PUFA a higher LDL or lower HDL, guess what? I can design a diet. I don't want to keep that up because you know, it's very complicated on how we do it with our Excel sheets in the background, but you know, figure it out whether it works or not. It's your cause to figure it out. We are changing people's health. What else is it that I want to show you that we do? We have the blood test, and look at the food schedules. Okay, so we are taking out the entire food schedules, and when we plan a nutrition plan, okay, we look at the protein, the carbs, the fats at every level. The choice of foods is linked to the blood parameter or the gene that you could select over here, and the referral recommendation that has been given. Overall, there's a lot. I love this report, and I'm not going to be apologetic. Yeah, you want to say it's a load of bullshit, please do. You want to call me a fraud, please call me a fraud. I have absolutely no issues. I know what we do is based on giving the best possible healthcare to people. Like, look at this: vitamin B9, vitamin D, okay, vitamin K. And by the way, people say that, hey, you know what? You could do this with a blood test. That's more conclusive. Each vitamin testing in India is around 7,500 rupees. That's about $100. And the whole gene test costs $299. So my point of view is, if I'm looking at calcium, I'm looking at copper, I'm looking at magnesium, I'm looking at phosphate, I'm looking at zinc, I'm looking at these absorptions of these, I'm looking at antioxidants, caffeine absorption, gluten, lactose intolerance, okay, salt intake and blood pressure sensitivity, riboflavin and blood pressure sensitivity. It allows me to design the nutrition plan in that direction. And my discussion started around 5 years ago when we're looking at this stuff being launched in 2013. We're now in 2018, where it's considered practice in the dietetic sphere to go ahead in it. And there is a lot of there's a lot of internet out there which says that yes, people are falsely promoting it to sell their supplements, and that's where I disagree. I'm looking at it not promoting a supplement. If you remember what I showed you, I'm looking at the foods which I want to actually, really recommend it to a person by understanding which are the highest contents of those foods, and maybe somehow seeing that if this food is there, can I add that to diet, and then go back to my diet chart. My back-end diet charts take 7 hours to prepare, because I'm going in over here, and then I'm going into clinical assessment, and I'm looking at dietary recall, and I'm checking, oh, he doesn't like prunes and spicy food, so I'm not going to give him prunes. So I go back again to my Excel sheet. Is prunes over here? No, prunes is not over here. Then I'll do a search over here, and I'll look for prunes, so I'll look for prunes over here and figure out, is prunes there in my software planner? And it's not there. So great. So now I can start embedding in this and preparing his diet plan or her diet plan. So the final conclusion that I want to actually show you is, was it this one, the overlap on how we think? No, it was not this one. How does a doctor treat you? Diagnosis and treatment. That's reactionary behavior. My point is, can we anticipate how nutrition can really help a person? And there was a study, and I'm going to post this link, okay? A systematic review of genetic testing and lifestyle behavior change. Are we using high quality genetic inventions and considering behavior theory? The one line that convinced me 5 years ago to actually go with this was, the most promising lifestyle changes were in nutrition, period. Now I run a business with 9 clinics and 60 dietitians. If you believe that this is the wrong thing, so be it. People are coming to us because we are getting results. We're getting positive testimonials. And if you watch our Google reviews online, we have one of the highest Google reviews in India in terms of the quality of the review and the number of reviews. I mean, if that's not food for thought, and the credentials of my team, all of us are master degree holders. We are not certificate holders. We have studied post-graduation degrees, and we are doing this. So I hope this video helps, and if it doesn't help, I'm having a ball still learning. And if you have stuff to show me that I can learn from you, so happy to receive it. I'm on Instagram, it's Ryan Nutrition Coach. I am on Facebook, and I do a radio show here in Bangalore in India, and I talk to people, and that's why I'm influential as per this thread of mails that are going on over here. I'm Ryan Fernando. Take care. God bless.